Hi, team. Welcome to 10 Talks. Today's conversation is all about setting you up to win your gut health. And how better to do it than to get your brain involved, and not really the brain that we're so used to managing and training, but your gut brain. So here we go. It's the next brain that is up for really the power piece of what's happening in our lives. Now, what's beautiful about our brain is that it can really, from a mind management perspective, it's all about us managing our mind, our thoughts. Our gut is really about, do we have that ability? Are we feeling energized? Are we rested? What's that gut check? We have all this language that we really have used, but do you know why we use it? Do you know the science? Do you know what's behind why really we have another brain, and it's the gut brain? So, Dr. Hunter, thank you for being on our team and really coaching us up today on what is our gut brain, why is it important? And I just want to start with really, why do we say there's a brain in our gut? And what do we do when we say, gosh, just from a gut check perspective, that doesn't make sense, or my gut tells me? Talk to us about that.
Yeah, when we think about the microbiome, the critters that live in our gut, it has been referred to as our second brain. It also might be the one that's really in charge, right? That's what we're learning so much in science about this today. And so when we think about our thinking brain and our gut brain, it's really what we call the gut brain axis. So, and this is not just our thinking brain telling the gut what to do. It's what we call bidirectional. There's information flowing back and forth. And, when we think about the central nervous system, the brain, the spinal column, nerves, we kind of understand that from a pathophysiologic process. There are nerves that come from the brain down to the gut. The vagus nerve is a great example of that. The gut brain is much more kind of complex and maybe even more sophisticated. It involves hormones. It involves neurotransmitters. Um, it involves the enteric nervous system, all of these, hundreds and thousands of nerve cells that exist in the gut itself. So there is some of that crosstalk back and forth between the vagus nerve, the brain, and the gut. But there's so much more going on from the gut standpoint that can also influence our brain.
So when we think about just the definition of brain, we think about that it controls us. It's a matter of what we're thinking, what we're doing. How does our gut brain really control our high performance? I mean, all of our brand is about high performance professionals and going for greatness, being able to really be that extra, showing up my best every day. Tell us how to use the brain and the power of the way that it thinks and the way that it operates to really help us win life.
Yeah, well, we know that when our gut and our microbiome is not in alignment, it has multiple impacts on, lots of different parts of our body. So our mood can be impacted by our gut being out of balance. Our stress level, our mental stress can impact our gut health too, right? We all may have those butterflies in our stomach when we're anxious or, causing some GI distress when things are not going the way we want. One of the really interesting things that I've learned through this process is that most of the serotonin in our body, which we know is a neurotransmitter, has to do a lot with happiness and mood management, is actually made in our gut. And having a real specific makeup of organisms in the gut will influence how high or low your serotonin levels can be. So that's hugely important, right? That we have that proper biodiversity in the gut, that we have those different teammates working for us. And we want the teammates in there who can make some serotonin and help not only for our mood, but also the serotonin in the gut helps with digestion. It helps with immune support. So again, it's a really complex interaction, and we're learning more and more about how these things play off of each other.
Well, you talk about those teammates, and we really love the power of team. And so let's talk about that team in our gut. Who are the players? What do they need? How do we set them up for great success? What's happening that's really going on in our gut that matters whether we're going to win the day or not?
Yeah, when you talk about the gut brain axis, and we've talked about nutrition and how that plays a role, really thinking about the things that feed the gut microbiome and develop that biodiversity. We think about lactobacillus. Probably many people have heard of that. That's often in common probiotics. Bifidobacterium, another common bacteria that we want to see in the microbiome. And those are the two that are most responsible for that serotonin production. Now, when we know we consume high fiber diets and less processed food, we feed the good guys, the critters we want on our team. And really interesting is not just that the fiber is feeding the gut, but it's what the gut does with fiber that really supports our health overall. So the production of short chain fatty acids is something I want to take a moment to talk about because that really can affect our mental health and our some of our ways that, especially when we think about appetite and cravings and things like that, we know that a lot of that is controlled in our gut. If you don't have the right kind of bacteria there, you're craving that cheap fat and sugar, the candy bar, something to try to pick you up at 3 o'clock versus a more diverse microbiome that craves fiber. You're reaching for the apple or the healthy smoothie. And when we have the higher fiber, bacteria ferment that fiber into these short chain fatty acids. Recent study I read on weight management is that short chain fatty acids produced in the gut are an important molecule for the health of the gut. It's one of the main energy sources for the gut and the lining of the intestine itself. But those short chain fatty acids also go throughout the body. They make their way to the brain and actually interact with our brain's hunger response, right? And so the study actually gave people short chain fatty acids and it affected how hungry they were the next day. So this is why a high fiber, minimally processed diet not only so important for our microbiome health, but for weight management, for feeling full and satisfied because of these downstream effects that a well-functioning microbiome and team is helping us with. In lifestyle medicine, we have our 6 pillars of health. And all of these pillars support gut health as well. And it's hard to tease them apart, right? Like, is it that, maybe you're winning your sleep, but you're not winning your physical activity or you're not winning your diet? It's going to have negative impacts on the microbiome, on the gut brain. So, really thinking about how do I try to balance all of these things? Eating a healthy, balanced diet, not focusing on processed foods, sugar, lots of alcohol, that all has impacts on the gut. Thinking about our stress levels. Not only can the mental stress have impacts on the gut, but we know that poor gut health can create problems with our mood and with our mental health, as we were talking about through those mechanisms. So, what are you doing? Taking your stress breaks, focusing on things that kind of fill you up and bring you joy, getting enough sleep, right? Exercising regularly, and thinking about what are we exposed to that could be impacting our microbiome. So, antibiotics, just one real obvious one, right? It's trying to kill microorganisms in your body, and it doesn't just say, "Oh, well, it's because you have a tooth abscess or something like that." It's impacting the whole gut. And so that's where we also talk about some other team members that could be helpful, probiotics.
So, as an athlete, so many athletes are really taking a lot of medication in terms of Tylenol or Aleve or something from their high performance. And what's really challenging when we're going for greatness and for everybody out there, the life athletes and everybody, is that really understanding, okay, when I am exercising or pushing myself to the point that I'm constantly taking a leave or constantly taking that, what's it doing to my performance? What's it doing to my gut and my brain, even though I think it's relieving the soreness of my muscles? And also to take it a step further for that athlete that's a pro or a college athlete, when we need performance, it's just part of the ritual and routine to take a lot of things to make sure that we're staying at that high performance perspective. So we are a win win model. So, winning for the athlete to be able to perform and to be able to really reach those goals and push their body, and most importantly, win that well-being component. So what's happening when I'm using a lot of those kind of recovery methods?
Yeah, the anti-inflammatory medications and specifically the Aleve, the ibuprofen, Motrins of the world do have a direct impact on gut health. And it is something that I recommend people use less often. can thin the lining of the stomach, right, which makes you more prone to bleeding episodes, does impact the microbiome. And when we think about our aches and pains, is it inflammation from poor gut health, right? I mean, again, it might be hard to tease out chicken or the egg, because we also know there's overtraining too and under recovery, right? So fueling your body with proper nutrition is one way to help reduce the inflammation. Um, Allowing for good sleep and allowing for time for recovery is also super important. And then we're working on the gut health at the same time, right? If we can reduce the anti-inflammatories, if we can focus on, maybe adding a probiotic on a daily basis can help to support the health of the gut, reduce the inflammation, keep your immune system from going on overdrive so that you're having, more joint problems or autoimmune issues. So it is something that, can we attack this from a natural standpoint? Can we get some of the lifestyle changes in there? Take a rest day every now and again, right? Go and get that massage. Make sure you're stretching after your cardio and your weightlifting, because we have to protect the body in the ways that we can. And focusing on the gut health is a good way to do that. We know that the more healthy your microbiome is, the less your inflammation.
So, from a probiotic perspective, what am I reaching for if I really want to be able to choose a probiotic that's for me?
Yeah, so probiotics are really microorganisms that we're trying to reintroduce into the body in some way to help replenish the microbiome, right? So this is commonly, people will take a probiotic if they're taking an antibiotic. I think that's a great strategy. Even start it before the antibiotic if you can and continue it a bit afterwards. And there are so many probiotics on the market, and we do have some information on how to choose the best for you. Also, think about, how can I get probiotics in my food?
Yeah.
So I always say, if we can get it from the food source, then we know our body is much more likely to absorb it,
Yes.
right? Because that's how it works for us. And we talked about the fermented foods previously, and a lot of those fermented foods, they're fermented by
Mm.
microorganisms. So things like yogurt, things like kefir and kimchi and sauerkraut, these are great sources of probiotics. So again, I'm not big on dairy products, but if you're going to choose dairy, a little bit of plain yogurt every day can be a great way to get the probiotics um, in a way that maybe it's easier to add in than like having sauerkraut every day, right? So
Mm. And let's just talk about the chemicals that we are taking into our body when we leave out being able to have those healthy food choices. Because certainly we're doing a lot of protein drinks, we're doing a lot of powders, we're just doing a lot of kind of that quick fix because I need to get on to performance. What's that doing to our gut?
yeah, some of those things, especially if there's added in artificial sweeteners, if there's artificial colors, things like that. Even some of the protein powders, when we think about, oh, it's easy to digest because I'm not chewing it and it's not taking a lot of time. If it's kind of a more inflammatory substance that the body doesn't recognize, it can actually put more strain on the system. So, I think using a protein powder as a shortcut is an it's a tool,
Mhm.
but think about what goes into it, right? How much added sugar is in that? Is it a whey protein? I think there's probably a broad group of people who are going to say, yeah, that's exactly what I need. And we know whey is from dairy. It can be inflammatory. So can you find a plant-based protein powder that you like? The benefit from that, you might get some fiber as
Mhm.
well, right? Um, so really thinking about what are all the added things, and then can you replicate that, or can you throw in a couple servings of fruits or veg with, if you don't, obviously none of us are making our own protein powder at home, right? It's a convenience item, but can we amp up the servings of fruits and vegetables to really access those antioxidants, which do such wonderful things in our bodies? When you think about inflammation and recovery, we really need those plant chemicals, those phytonutrients that we get from the rainbow of the plant kingdom. And so a great option is, use your protein powder, but throw in some frozen spinach, throw in some frozen berries, some pineapple, mango, banana, whatever you like, to really kind of amp up those servings of fruits and veg, get some more colors in your day. And something, freezer fruit and things like that are really accessible, right? You can make it quick. You don't have to worry about it spoiling. It's a little bit more nutrition maybe than the blueberries you can get on the shelf in February, right? So those are ways to really take those convenience items and e- enhance the nutrition to work for you.
So, as we talk about really our gut brain, just like our mind from a brain perspective, when we have an emotion or a feeling, we reach for something. So, with our gut brain, if we're missing fiber or if we're putting a lot of chemicals in terms of doing a lot of the protein drinks and things like that without great intention about adding the food component, certain things are going to show up and or we're not going to be feeling fabulous or even high performing. When you talk about inflammation, how do we know how to manage the inflammation in a smart way?
Yeah, I think it depends on how it shows up for you,
Okay.
right? For some people, it's fatigue and brain fog. For others, it's that achy knee that just won't quit, right? So, um, and you may have to think about those other lifestyle factors. It could be the gut raising its head and saying, look, this isn't working for me. But, you know, is part of your fatigue because you're getting 5 hours of sleep at night
Okay.
and trying to get up and do 3 hours of cardio. So really kind of looking at how can I address these symptoms that are coming up and seeing, is my underlying lifestyle around this supporting me or am I cutting corners, to try to reach a goal and it's having some significant effects on me.
So, from an inflammation perspective, I'm committed to really just figuring out on a scale of 1 to 10, using our stat system, how am I feeling every day? And when I put something in my mouth, what does it do to my gut? Does it help me perform at a higher level? Does it keep me in a state of really feeling energized? And am I reaching for fruit and vegetables and those rainbows versus reaching for anything processed? And the other winning strategy that you've shared with us is really that probiotic and it being such a small but really powerful component in making our brain health really a smart choice. So, what are some specific things for us to look for?
Yeah, there are so many products on the market, right? So if you're not going to get your probiotics from your food and you're looking for an easy option that you can get at a drugstore shelf, something you can look at on the bottle is what we call strain diversity. So remember, we want that tropical rainforest of microbiota in our gut. And so, really, if you get a probiotic that only has lactobacilli, that's the only microorganism you're introducing with that probiotic. So, several different brands will have different strains that are available. So, looking at how many strains they carry could be one way to judge the quality of a probiotic. There's also what we call CFUs or colony forming units. It's how many actual microorganisms are coming in that capsule. So, it could be the difference between 1 million and 50 million, right? So, thinking about a little higher on the CFUs and a couple different strains of microorganisms is going to be good. If they can claim clinical evidence, right? Shown to improve microbiome health, and also some quality control. So that's one of our things with over-the-counter products is there is no regulation around it. So having a company that is doing some of their own testing, making sure what they're saying in the bottle is what you're putting in your mouth, it can be important. And then also, if it's something you have to take 5 or 6 times a day to get the benefit from it, most people aren't going to do that. So look at the dose. Do you have to take 6 of these capsules to get the colony forming units that they're recommending? Does it have to be multiple times a day? Really trying to find one that fits your lifestyle. Those are some things to look for.
And if we choose to go for the food component of it, and I'm going to reach for yogurt, am I really okay to just have one serving of yogurt per day to really be able to set my gut brain up for success?
Yeah, I mean, it's especially with the fermented foods and things like yogurt, it's kind of small portions.
Yes.
You can mix it up, right? You can have some yogurt with breakfast, you can have some sauerkraut on your sandwich at lunch, and you can have some kimchi at dinner. I mean, that's going to really amp it up if you have multiple servings and different types throughout the
Mhm.
day. But I think, a quarter cup to a half cup of plain yogurt, whether it's on top your oatmeal or in your smoothie or make a berry parfait, certainly a good option to have that on a regular basis. And I say plain because what you're getting with plain is there's no added sugar.
Mhm.
So you can flavor it in a different way by adding some fruit or, plain yogurt is kind of has a similar flavor to sour cream. So you could put it on top of your chili or, there's other ways to add it in. Or throw it in your smoothie. It's extra protein. It's going to give you your probiotics, but it doesn't necessarily have to flavor what you're putting it in. Those added sugars we want to avoid.
Well, team, it's up to you. We want you to be smart in your brain and in your gut. And what a gift for us to really accept the challenge. Let's just set ourselves up to really be smart about the choices that we make, be intentional about what we're doing with our mind, our body, and just really are we for us in a way that our choices are setting us up to choose the life that we want. So, Dr. Hunter, thank you so much for the gift of learning about our brain gut.
Thank you.